The American League wildcard race is a complete mess right now. And honestly, the standings don't even tell the whole story because right now, about half of the American League is still fighting for a playoff spot. And some of the teams we're calling wildcard contenders could very well end up winning their divisions. The Rays are only 4 games ahead of the Yankees. The White Sox are only 3.5 games ahead of Minnesota. The Guardians and Detroit is still lingering around. And Houston is literally 1 game ahead of Texas and 4 games ahead of Seattle. So with just over 5 weeks left in the regular season, we could be looking at a completely different playoff picture by the time September rolls around. And today I basically just want to go through every team involved, the division races that could completely change the wildcard picture, the biggest series coming up, and who I actually think is making the playoffs. So let's start with what might be the most important division in this entire thing. The AL East. The Rays are 76 and 51. The Yankees are 72 and 55. That's a 4-game difference. And this is where things get interesting because the Yankees aren't just trying to protect a wildcard spot. They're legitimately close enough to Tampa that they could still win the division. New York has already won 4 straight heading into this weekend, and they're coming off a sweep of Baltimore, which was a crucial series. If Baltimore had taken that on them, they could have boosted themselves in the wildcard race, and the Yankees are obviously at the top in that. So yeah, then the Yankees get Houston for 3 games next week, and then later in the month they have Boston. So the Yankees have a pretty obvious opportunity to change this entire race, but Tampa has something New York doesn't, a 4-game cushion, and the Rays have been really good all year. They're not just hanging on to first place because everyone else is terrible. They're 76 and 51, which is one of the best records in baseball. And here's the series I'm circling, September 22nd through 24th. Tampa Bay goes to Yankee Stadium for 4 games against the Yankees. That's going to be an insane series. And before that, Tampa plays Boston for 3 games, September 18th through the 20th. And the Rays are just going to have a massive say in what this playoff picture looks like. If Tampa holds on to the division, the Yankees and Red Sox are probably battling for wildcard positioning. But right now, the Yankees are in that top spot, and Boston is around 4 games behind them. But if the Yankees catch Tampa, that pushes them into the wildcard picture. And, that's the reason why this race is so crazy right now. Boston is 68 and 59. They're 8 games behind Tampa in the division and 4 games behind New York, but they're currently sitting comfortably in the second wildcard spot. And this is where I think people need to separate the teams that are actually in danger from the teams that are technically alive. Boston has a pretty healthy cushion over the teams chasing the final wildcard spot, but they're not playing great baseball right now after their ridiculous historic win streak. They're 4-6 over the last 10. And if that continues, suddenly we're having a completely different conversation, especially because Boston has to deal with Tampa in September and then New York later in the season. So I think Boston overall is in a great position, but I wouldn't call them completely untouchable. Now we could look at the Central. This is where things get really weird. The White Sox, after winning 40 games last year, are leading the division at 66 and 61. Minnesota is 63 and 65. Cleveland is 62 and 66. And Detroit is 61 and 66. And then the Royals are basically out of it. So that's everyone just on top of each other in that division, 3 or 4 games separating everybody with 4 teams, which honestly is usually how the AL Central goes. I definitely think the Twins have shown enough already to make this interesting. They're currently 63 and 65 and riding a 3-game winning streak. And look at what happens in September. Chicago plays Minnesota 3 straight games, September 4th through the 6th. Then Chicago plays Cleveland September 14th through the 16th. Then Detroit comes to Chicago for 4 games, September 17th through the 20th. So Chicago basically has the entire division sitting right in front of them. If they're actually the best team in the Central, they have the opportunity to prove it, and they have been doing that down the stretch. But if they start losing series, then there's so many teams in striking distance. There's another big series, the White Sox versus the Astros coming up. And why does that matter? Because Houston is fighting for the AL West. So you've got 2 division races potentially affecting each other at the same time. Let's move on to the AL West because this might be my favorite division race in baseball right now. Houston is 64 and 64. Texas is 63 and 65. They're a 1-game difference between each other. You got the 2 Texas teams fighting it out. But yeah, I don't know. Houston is not exactly playing like a team that wants to run away with this. They just got destroyed by the Angels, losing 18-3, which was their worst loss of the season to the worst team in baseball. Houston also scored only 7 runs across the 3-game series against Los Angeles, which is just not exactly the kind of baseball you want to be playing when your division lead is 1 game. And Texas is sitting right there, but that's where this gets interesting because Tampa Bay plays Texas 4 straight games, September 3rd through the 6th. So the Rays could actually have an impact on the AL West race while they're fighting for the AL East. And then Houston plays Chicago and they play Tampa Bay. So Houston has some extremely important games coming up against other contenders. Let's actually talk more directly about the wildcard teams now that we've kind of sorted out the divisions, because this is where everything is just a mess. Right now, after the Yankees and Red Sox, we both have nice cushions. Minnesota and Texas are sitting at 63 and 65 for that last wildcard spot. Toronto is 63 and 66. Cleveland is 62 and 66. Detroit has 61 wins. Baltimore has 61 wins. And Seattle is 60 and 68, and they're a part of the wild card race, 8 games under 500, which is just ridiculous. We're talking about 8 teams separated by just 5 games, and Toronto might be the team I would watch the closest. They're 7-3 over their last 10, and these are your defending American League champions. They're not playing great baseball overall this season, but they're getting hot at exactly the right time, and they have a huge opportunity right now because they're playing the Yankees, who are ahead of them. Are they going to catch the Yankees? No, but if they could take that series, that's something that could shake up the whole race itself. Seattle is also a team that I think could be a dangerous sleeper, but we just have not seen them do anything this season. Like, I'm pretty much ready to chalk them off, but I mean, at 60 and 68, you think their season would be over, but they're only 3 games behind the current final wildcard position. So, I mean, they have enough talent, and I don't think you can completely write them off. But the problem is you just can't keep playing 500 baseball. They need to go on a run. They need like a 10-5 stretch down the run, because the difference between being 3 games out and being 7 games out can happen incredibly fast at this point in the season. And there's so many teams above them right now that they're not just going to sneak in playing average baseball. They got to move up in the standings, and they got to get hot soon. So who do I think is actually going to make the playoffs this year in the American League? Obviously, I really like Tampa Bay right now to win the AL East, and that's coming from me as a Yankees fan. 4 games isn't an enormous lead, but they're the team that has controlled this division for most of the season. The Yankees obviously are in a really good position. You know, they have the second best record in the American League. They're 72-55. They've got almost like a plus 100 run differential, and they've been playing pretty good lately. So I think New York is making the playoffs one way or another. It would be awesome to see them win the division. And then also in the AL East, Boston is another team I expect to make it. But here's where I think I get a little more controversial. Like, I don't really trust any of these teams fighting for that last final playoff spot. Minnesota, I think they've actually got a chance. Texas, they're 1 game out of the division. Toronto is getting hot. Cleveland's right there. Detroit has like the craziest metrics I've ever seen for a team that's 5 games under 500. I mean, I think their expected win-loss record this year is like 10 games over, and their offense is insane. And obviously they traded Skubal. So this is a team that I think will be really good next year, but I just don't know if they could win enough games down the stretch to make this interesting. They do have an easy schedule, so they're definitely a sleeper. Baltimore, I think, is still alive in the race, but they really couldn't afford to get swept by the Yankees this week. And then Seattle is definitely still alive, but I don't know. Like, it's so hard to figure out, but if I had to pick the playoff field right now, obviously it's August 21st and a lot of things can change. My picks right now would be that the Rays win the East, the White Sox win the Central. I think the Astros hold on and win the West. And then the wildcard teams, I think it'll be Yankees, Red Sox, and I'm going to take the Texas Rangers for that final spot. I know they're technically tied with Minnesota right now, and Houston is only 1 game ahead of them, but I just think Texas has the opportunity to completely flip the West. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they ended up winning the division, but I do think they're good enough to hang around the wildcard race. But I mean, honestly, at this point, like, ask me again in 2 weeks and I might have 5 different answers, because that's how ridiculous this race is. I mean, obviously, as a Yankees fan, I'm rooting against the Rays, but I think they will hold on. I don't know. 4-game lead is a lot for a team that just can't stop winning games like the Rays, and the Yankees maybe could go on a run in September when they get some of these guys like Judge, Bellinger, Stanton, and everybody else back. But other than that, like, I think Minnesota is a team that you should watch to win the division. And obviously, like, some of these division races are going to be extra important, because if you're looking at something like, I think more so the AL West, that could be a division where, it gets settled by 1 game, and then the winner of the division goes to the playoffs, and then the loser of that division doesn't even make a wild card. So that's why the Yankees are pretty comfortable where they are. They have a big enough cushion right now to where I think they're definitely a lock to make the playoffs. But there's still more than 5 weeks left, and basically every important AL series from here on out is going to have playoff implications. So I generally have no idea who's going to survive it, but I just figured it'd be great to hop on here and make a video to talk about how insane this race is. I mean, I just can't believe you have a team that's 60 and 68 in the wild card race right now. I think that shows how bad the American League has been this year, but it's going to make things very interesting. And in September, I think we're going to have a lot of amazing series that have some serious hype and implications. So let me know what you guys think. Comment below who your playoff picture is going to be at the end of the year. I'd love to hear everybody's takes and who they think is going to make it, who they think is going to win the divisions and everything like that. I'm posting daily uploads here on YouTube right now. If you made it this far, you might as well subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.